All right, Chris, we're back. It's another episode of what is right now just it's the Fantasy Elect podcast. In the future, we were just joking before we started. We'll have to call it like Team America or something.
Oh no, you went out.
Really?
Did he freeze?
He froze.
Okay, I'm still talking. You guys will jump in. Uh, the Today we have a guest, Aaron Handwerker. Aaron is a podcaster here in Austin. He has several podcasts that he runs. He is also the founder of Akia
Oh no.
Which is a peer-to-peer delivery service that is actually doing something other than Uber Eats and DoorDash and some of these others, which I think, Aaron, I have to say the concept and the way your business model is so much more equitable, and I love the model of it compared to the kind of it's gonna get me in trouble, but the plantation owner model that's used by Uber Eats. And it's something I do feel strongly about. I think you and I spoke before. I think Uber Eats and DoorDash and some of these others, they exposed a demand, but I don't think they actually created an equitable or even profitable long-term business model. So you're using that demand that's there, and you're actually creating a real solution. So I think that's amazing. For anybody who doesn't know, Akia has a couple different variations to it. And one that we were talking about before we started that's very relevant to Fantasy Elect is a peer-to-peer betting system, wagering system, specifically within the confines of a sporting event or of an event. So if the three of us are at a Cowboys versus Eagles game, or pick your team, and we're sitting at different places within the stands, I can put a bet that Dak Prescott is going to throw a touchdown on the next drive, and you two can pick up on that. And it's real time. We're all dealing with the same information, and it's a way of heightening the fun of the game far more than the current offerings, I think, as far as sports betting go. So,
well, thank you.
I love what you're doing, Aaron. Hope that intro does you justice. And as we joked a little bit beforehand as well, you are a true child of America, just like I am, just like Chris is. We're very diverse in who our parents were and what the beliefs are, and that also dovetails into Fantasy Elect. We're a little bit of political wagering. It's a little bit of buy-in, but also really homegrown in our desire for political engagement and for what's the political culture, because everybody wants what's best for the U.S. Or hopefully, I choose to believe that everybody wants what's best for the U.S. if you're an American.
Actually, you've touched on something that's kind of interesting that I think is when you're talking about just kind of our kind of ethnicity backgrounds, and there was a time in American politics long ago in 2012. I'm joking. Where the idea was that demographics were destiny. And a really super smart guy named Rai Teixeira, who was working for the Obama campaign, said, well, listen, white people are going to become fewer and fewer. And if you look at Latino vote and, Asian vote, it's only going to increase as a percentage in the country. And they vote overwhelmingly Democratic. And so basically in an election or so, the Republicans are going to get wiped out. And of course, we quickly had Republicans take everything in the next 2 years, and then a Republican president with Trump. And, one of the things that happened was that demographically, we see Latinos becoming more and more, I'm going to say Republican, but it's not traditional, what we call a traditional Republican. They were looking for a vehicle, and it seemed like the best of two bad choices to them. I've done a lot of Latino campaigns and a lot of Latino survey work and polling. And what's really interesting is how they just shifted, and everybody thought they were going to be going one way. And they didn't. They're kind of going the other way. And I think that there's a guy named Patrick Ruffini who would be a great guest on this, who's a pollster and demographer, who believes that in 2 election cycles by 2028, that the Republican Party is going to be, more Latino and more minority than the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is going to be more white, affluent, college educated. So it's going to look almost exactly like the old Republican Party, what we would consider the 70s, 80s Republican Party. And it's really kind of interesting that the Justin and I have talked a lot about it. I said that if you have to make one bet in American politics, bet against whatever the conventional wisdom is, because you're going to be right. The kind of the status quo has not gotten an election or a trend right, probably in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I totally misunderstood.
Whenever I see polls,
I thought we agreed that always bet on black. I thought that's what we agreed. Black, right? I thought that was the going by.
That was the thing, right?
Well, Wesley Snipes, he's always right. Sorry, Aaron, go ahead. What were you going to say?
That's a Passenger 57. No, is that Demolition Man?
No,
Demolition
you're right.
Man.
Passenger 57.
Oh, it's one of those two.
Right.
Yeah, Passenger 57 is on the phone with the president. Always bet on black.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I felt the need to contribute to. A very close business peer of mine, his parents immigrated from Argentina. So they identify as Latin immigrants to this country. And they fled the Argentinian Revolution in the 60s, in the late 60s, because they were afraid of socialism.
Yeah.
And now they are very afraid of socialism.
Right.
So anything linked back to that is instant no for them. No. So there's a lot of lesser of two equals conversations happening. And from their shoes, the lesser of the two equals here is the authoritarian type ideas, because they saw socialism ruin their country, even though we're obviously not going directly into a socialist path, because I think that most would agree that we put democratic principles before all other principles. But interesting seeing how his family dynamic works, and what sort of information they accept and deny. And also putting myself in their shoes, when they were growing up, they did not have basic education. These are people who have to trust the newspaper. And that is very different than trusting yourself and your knowledge of history. So it's opportunities that arise from things like Fantasy Elect, where you can build a more engaging path towards information. Right. I love it. Especially if there's something monetary to gain.
Shout out for Fantasy Elect.
We talk about sports fans. They want to test their strategic mind. They want to test their skills, their own skills. And in order to do that, they need some sort of reward to incentivize them to test it. Money. It's a great reward. I think that's perfect. So yeah, there's a lot more conversation we can open up around Fantasy Elect specifically.
But I think you raised a good point. I mean, the way I also think about it is that in politics in general, most people are passively engaged. They get to vote and they get to watch on TV. And if maybe they donate, or maybe they go to a rally. But I would say that donating and voting and going to a rally and watching TV are all in service of somebody else. It's an action that you're doing for someone else. You're either watching somebody else perform in a debate or whatever, you're watching a rally, you're watching a speaker, or you're cutting somebody a check to donate, or you're marking their name, right? And I think the thing that drives me for Fantasy Elect as a consumer of it, as a player, is that
Rose again.
I get to now be in control.
By the way, we could actually do.
I
like
get to now. It's more active. It's more active. My participation is an active participation. I get to put a team together, and it's a fantasy version. I'm the GM of that team. But now, as I'm consuming data and looking at polls and fundraising and election results, it actually directly, I can do something about it over the course of the election. So I feel like I'm actively engaged. And I think that is the key part. If you're a political junkie, you can watch CNN all day long, MSNBC, Fox News. You can read all the Twitter threads, but can you actually have some level of control?
Oh no, I'm missing the big point.
Team?
I want to know what it was.
The murderer is.
Can you hear me, Aaron?
It cut off right before you finished that last sentence.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you are a political junkie, there are ways for you to kind of scratch that itch, but they're all very passive. I can follow or I can rant on Twitter. I can do these things, but I have no control over a team of politicians. I have no way to like bench somebody or to trade somebody, or you know what I mean? So this is a much more active way for me to scratch that itch. And also it does then,
even though it cut off at the end there, I think I got it.
Yeah. All right, cool. I think I'm curious if one of the reasons I know that Aaron, you wanted to be on the, Aaron, I know one of the reasons that we talked about doing the podcast was like to try out Riverside. And I'm really curious if it's my internet, because we have like a ton of tech problems sometimes. And it's recording. It says like the individual streams, it's recording.
It's a phone queue, right? Yeah.
But then how is it interacting with other people, right?
Yeah.
Because now I on my end, you're working, I'm working, but Chris is frozen. So I'm curious, like, is he hearing me? Are you hearing him? Is he moving on your end?
Yeah. Yeah. On my end, no interruption with Chris.
Yeah, and no interruption.
So I'm thinking it might be my internet, not although right. I don't know, 5 minutes ago I was on a Zoom call, so I don't know. But
yeah. I mean, it could be the upload speed, but
it says 99% uploading.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Continuously uploading high quality recording to Riverside. I have no idea.
By the way, Aaron,
well, actually, guys, man, Chris is still frozen. I don't even know if he can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear him.
I hear him.
If you say, Aaron, if you say something, can he hear you?
What were you going to say, Chris? I know.
I was going to say, along with we were talking about the monetary.
Aaron? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear everybody now.
Oh, and you can hear Chris too. I still cannot hear Chris. That's crazy.
Okay.
Well, this is what I would say. Aaron, we all touched on something that is one of our top 5, which is the congressional hearings yesterday with the heads of the Ivy League universities and what has become almost a viral thing now, thanks to Ackerman and some other people that have posted on Twitter, but the unwillingness, let's say, or the inability to answer the way at least Stefanik wanted them to regarding whether or not advocating for the genocide of Jewish people is a violation of the policies, the bullying policies at these universities. Bullying, harassment. It's really interesting because as we're talking about, demographics is destiny and these things that we started with, what do demographics even mean anymore is the real question. Because we started to touch on this last week, Chris and I, about what is the, Elise Stefanik on her party, the further right you go, the more they hate Jewish people. And then it seems to me that the farther left you go now, the more they hate Jewish people, because it's a circle, right? So the two extremes are here together, very close. So as I've looked at demographics coming into the U.S., it does make, in a way, it's almost for me.
Is that again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze on me, Justin.
I was just going to say that, do the demographics even matter, or is there something, there's certain cultural aspects that groups hold on to, and that group is a culture regardless of their demographic. So, for instance, if you are a
No,
generational left leaning Harvard educated, are you,
it cut off right when you said for instance.
if you are a demographically, let's say, younger, left leaning, Harvard educated, do you now actually have more in common with people that you think you are not, you should not have anything in common with, right?
Absolutely. Um, and I'm kind of always going to start from commonalities because I suppose philosophically, we're all on a rock shooting through space at 40,000 miles an hour. Like it's a miracle that the three of us are talking right now, and so I'm gonna treat that opportunity as such. We're all here in the same place, and let's start there. And I think a lot of people have similar goals, but they have very different understanding of the potential journeys to achieve those goals. Um, and demographics are really hard because the demographics mean whatever the person who's collecting the data want it to mean when they present it, right? I could show data that shows that the members of the LGBTQ plus community are more likely to be sexual offenders, but then I could do the same thing for Catholic priests, and I'm not going to conflate them, and it's all depends on who's gathering the data and for what purpose and how are they going to comment on it later. Um, it's one of the reasons I really don't like polls. Because I'm not usually polled, and if I see a poll that says most Americans think X, I'm immediately like, well, I didn't get asked, so I don't trust the poll immediately. Right. Like I'm not amongst the most. Who are these people asking? Are they getting these poll responses by emailing out randomly? Because most people in my generation, and I'm almost 40, like I'm millennial, so I'm at the edge of that, and I was raised with computers, but not the internet. The internet came in during puberty. I was raised without social media. That wasn't until college, late college. Um, and who's I've been taught not to respond to things like that. It's phishing. It's a scam. It's a virus. If I get emailed a poll, I don't know who's taken that poll.
Right.
And could it be in a world where clicking links in your email is dangerous, that means the people responding to these polls are less educated. Like they're taking a big risk by clicking this random link. And then again, I might be scared. Maybe I'm helping reduce the accuracy of polls because of that fear. Who knows?
Does it work in the inverse as well? If you see a poll and you're like, oh, I agree with that, and you're like, well, yeah, then obviously, yeah, most Americans probably do agree with that. Do you see any of that confirmation bias in your view of it?
If it's online, there's confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Like if it's online, I have to assume there is some other agenda. Not necessarily a nefarious one or even with a purpose.
Sure.
But if it's online, there's code in place to put things in front of me that they want me to see, whether it's because they're going to gain from advertisers monetarily, or they're going to put clickbait in front of me to show that their traffic numbers are higher for investors or whatever. But I like to know their purpose. I like to know the intent. But I don't know if that's everybody, right?
Right.
I'm super inquisitive, and I think it is because of that upbringing that I had. I always had my dad, my mom telling me to save my soul, and my dad telling me I need to save for retirement. Right? Like that's the Catholic and the Jewish upbringing right there. you feel a lot of guilt. There's a lot of potatoes as well. There's also a lot of dancing and alcohol. That's both sides of my family. It's
what
great.
more do you need? What more do you need in life, man?
Yeah, and I like these individual stories of people. My co-founder who had parents from Argentina. My mom, her family line, the Sullivan line, is sons and daughters of the Mayflower all the way back.
Wow.
My dad's side came here in the early 1900s from Poland to escape Poland, obviously, for many reasons. And they're all entrepreneurial, and they were all community engagers, like both sides of my family. My dad's side with Nathan's Hot Dogs in New York, which was a big community piece of Brooklyn in the 40s and 30s. Yeah. And then my mom's side in Texas, farmers, a lot of farms, and military. So there's a lot of civic responsibility, which is really missing. I mean, I did not have a civics class in high school. I should have.
Yeah.
That's massively missing, because understanding that level of import in your people, your society, can tell you a lot about what you need to do to make things happen with them. But we can extrapolate.
What's the statistic that most Americans can't pass the citizenship test, right? So it's
wouldn't surprise me.
And actually, man, I think it was Vivek Ramaswamy that wants to raise the voting age and make it contingent upon passing the citizenship test. Right? Have you seen this of his platform?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I personally, I can't imagine that. For me was a moment where I was like, oh, don't support that at all. Not that I don't support the expectation that citizens should be able to pass their own citizenship test. What I don't think, however, is raising the voting age. I think it's really just a way of getting rid of voters you don't want, right? And I'm actually generally for the expansion of rights, not the reduction of rights, as a general principle, not always. But that was the moment where I was like, I'm kind of checked out on this campaign. But that is certainly, I think it was 24 was the voting age that he threw out, and it was like contingent upon passing the citizenship test. Could be a little wrong in my statistics there, but
so here's a funny stat.
I think on my end, Chris is still frozen.
I can hear Chris.
Yeah.
Is he talking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
I can.
George Bush.
All right. Well, maybe give me a thumbs up whenever. It's horrible. I'm really frustrated with it.
Huh.
I'm like full.
Yeah. I definitely have no issues with Chris's audio or video.
I noticed mine seems to have gotten better, and yours, I guess, as well. For me.
Yeah, Aaron, I've had no issues with yours since we've signed on.
Same. Yeah. Justin, do you have the ability to log out and log back in and keep it recording? By chance?
I don't think so. Since I started it, if I leave, I think it's going to stop.
Well,
it does leave here.
You can just read.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to try to leave and come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about you when you're gone. No. When you're talking
now, are you in Philly?
No, I'm in LA, but I'm originally from Philadelphia, and I still consider myself from Philadelphia, even though my friends from Philadelphia don't consider me a Philadelphian because even though I was, but no, I mean it's classic kind of ethnic kind of urban thing. We're all from Philly, but when I was a kid, we moved to the suburbs. You're back. Better? You're back. Better?
I'm back. I think it's better. We'll see.
You moved to the suburbs. Literally 300 yards over the county line. And then Now I'm getting a lag. I'm getting a lag.
Oh yeah, I hear it too.
I hear yours too.
Oh, I heard myself.
I hear yours too.
Headliner. No, Riverside. That's the name.
Do you have the echo cancellation on?
For everyone except for me.
How does it sound now? I still hear me.
I'm still echoing. No, I don't. No, I'm not.
Okay. I'm not either.
Whatever you did, that fixed it.
Nice.
Good. No, what I was going to say was that, so you move out when you're a kid, but you're, Philadelphian born. And then either I've lived there or I've worked there since I was in high school. But when we're out with my kind of Philly buddies, they'll say, someone will say, where are you from? Philadelphia? And they go, he's not from Philadelphia, really. Because I moved away. Pennsylvania demographically is really interesting. I think except for, is it Iowa and Kansas, more people live within 5 miles of where they were born than any other state in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
Wow.
So, which is why, by the way, that in a place like California or New Jersey or Florida, if you move there and run for office and get called a carpetbagger, everybody's like, fuck it, right? Nobody cares. In a place like Pennsylvania, it matters. So, not surprisingly, Dr. Oz would lose. And that was a big thing. Where it wouldn't matter in New Jersey because everybody kind of moves in and out of New Jersey. And, so it was really interesting to see that at work, and it wasn't really talked about. I know that the Fetterman people were aware of it, which is why all his stuff was, all his commercials were location specific and not generic at all. And it was different places around the state that, as a Philadelphian, as a Pennsylvania, I could recognize. And the Oz things were kind of a lot of studio stuff or blurry backgrounds, and his campaign kind of felt hermetically sealed. But you were talking about polling, which is kind of an interesting thing that, I'm trying to think the philosopher who said, all models are wrong, some are useful. And, one of the things with survey work with polling, and I've probably seen, I don't know, I'm going to say 3,000, 4,000 surveys in my lifetime, is that they're useful and largely accurate. The problem has become, anything you see online that's an online poll is crap and could be disregarded. A good survey, the problem is that it is expensive, and it's expensive to balance it out, and it's expensive to get in touch with voters. And we know who we're getting because we model the sample. We say that, a 2023 sample in Kentucky governor's race is going to look much different than a 2024 U.S. Senate sample. And you have to model that. Pollsters will tell me that when they first started and everybody had a landline, and we're going back within, I'm going to say the mid 80s, that you could connect with the voter in your modeling. You could dial 5 times and get 1 voter. Now the number is roughly, I think they said it's 75. So it's exponentially larger. And what that does is that creates an expense that if you are a TV station or if you are a nearly bankrupt newspaper, you don't want to invest that kind of money. So, a good survey is going to cost you 30, 40 grand. And they're not going to invest that when you can get, frankly, some junior college dude to do it, for 5. Simple things like, how are you sampling Latinos? Are you sampling them in, what language? And there's certain tricks to knowing if you're calling Latino households, and you're guessing on surname, but you have Spanish interviewers, and they say, do you prefer to do this in Spanish or English? And most of the time they're saying English, by the way, but you want to hear that. Similarly, in the South, in the 80s and up to the early 90s, if you were interviewing African Americans in the South, especially older, you absolutely needed to have an African American interviewer, phone operator, because especially if you were older, like let's say you were in your 60s and in the 80s, and it's the white person calling to see how you're going to vote. I know how that plays out, right?
Yep.
And so those filters become very expensive. And frankly, most public surveys aren't doing it. I mean, there are a couple of really good surveys. The Wall Street Journal surveys are very good, and they're done by Tony Fabrizio and John Anzalone, who did Biden and Trump respectively in 2020. The Wall Street Journal stuff is done by, can't think of the Democrat, but the Republican is Bill McIntyre from Public Opinion Strategies. And they also lead. The other trick, by the way, here's a helpful hint, is that if you see an online survey or somebody posting a survey, if it is a legit survey, it will be really easy to find the crosstabs and the demographics. And they'll have a thing where you can download the entire PDF. And most of the time, the PDF is going to be like 900, 1,000 pages. And if you have that kind of thing, you can have some confidence that the survey is accurate. But again, 1 out of 10 surveys are wrong. But if you've done enough surveys, if you've read enough surveys, and I'm not even a pollster, I've just read a lot of them, you can look at a survey and you go, this isn't right. And I've sat in rooms with pollsters where they're going through the survey and they'll stop and they'll say, I don't think this is right. I'm going to redo it. And they always redo it on their dime. And again, it's just a statistical, like you're rolling dice and you roll, 10 doubles in a row. And that's not going to happen all the time, but it happens. So it's really kind of an interesting thing. But again, I always say that all models are wrong, some are useful. And again, the other thing with the survey, it is simply a snapshot in time. It's what happened during the time period that survey was being taken, probably over 2 days. The other trick too, if you see a survey and it's taken over like 2 weeks, printed it in, you should print it in 5x5 sheets in a roll, because it just fit to wipe your butt with, and not a whole lot else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love the requirement for it to be timely. That's something that people don't think about, because you do see how long that, if you look at 538, it'll say from Ipsos September 3rd through September 9th or something like that, right? So you do see how long it took. It's actually really, it's a great intro to our next couple of things. Let's here are the top stories that I saw this week. I'm open to yours as well, but I want to get your take on Newsome DeSantis debate. Couple zingers in there for sure. We learned that there's a lot of shit in San Francisco, and we learned that they both won't be the candidate for president in 2024, which I thought was a really well prepared line. How accurate, I don't know, but it was funny. But what I actually was the most scandalous thing, or the thing that, like, the rumor that I latched onto, was that Newsome's wife went up to him and said, "We're done here," when they were going to go longer. Now that's not what they said. They both agree. The official story is that everyone agreed it was over. But the rumor mill is that she went on stage and told Gavin, "We're done here." Any thoughts on that? I love, by the way, that I don't know who created that story and if it's accurate or not, but I love the inference of kind of like he's a cuck. I love the inference of like his wife is in charge. So
also
love to get your feedback.
They lost. One of the old. Also, they lost.
Yeah, there is that inference as well, for sure. Yeah.
One of the old debate strategies used to be whether you won or lost, immediately at the end of it, you both rush up to your guy to congratulate them, but you go to the host and you say, "How much would it cost me to rerun this show, to rerun the debate?" Right. And sometimes if it went bad, you had to put on the kind of Joker smile to do it. But that was kind of the thing that, so, it could be just a ploy. I was kind of surprised by how little news, how little impact that debate had. As everybody kind of went, it was kind of irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think either of them helped themselves.
Yeah.
I mean,
last week you and I, Chris, we talked about going into it. Why would DeSantis even agree to it? And the really concerning thing is, to your point, I think everybody was kind of like, none of you are important. Neither of you are important enough to care.
Right.
Which for Gavin Newsom, he's not running for anything right now. So he's running for 2028, I guess. Right. Yeah. But for DeSantis, it's really troubling that people are like, don't really care. Like, okay, so you pointed out that there's shit in San Francisco. You're still not likely to win the nomination. Like nobody's paying attention, which I think is really bad optics for his campaign.
Yeah, and I don't think he helped himself either long term, because there's a lot of governors that might be, Andy Beshear might be attractive. Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania might be really attractive. Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan might be attractive. But you see this guy, and he kind of comes off. Now, I have seen some dial groups. Somebody I know did an official dial group of that. And unsurprisingly, Democrats thought Newsom won. Republicans thought DeSantis won. Independents thought DeSantis won, but everybody thought that DeSantis was mean and unlikable, and that Newsom was fake and ill-informed, or disingenuous would be my word, which you kind of like. I didn't need to watch the debate to figure that out, right? But but again, I don't.
And I find too.
I don't think it helped. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and it's a lot of framing around it too, right? Like, I hope that if I've lost a fight, that my wife comes up and says that you're done. I hope that happens for my protection. My wife and I.
You gave it your best, honey. Let's go home.
Exactly. My wife and I are on the same team. We're playing. We're not just playing the same game. We're on the same team. And we have to give each other critical feedback in order to have successful performances, whatever it might be, whatever endeavor it is. But framing it as, I don't know, a matriarchy type attitude or cuckolding, like it's not. That's all the framing. We're talking about polls and bad polls. I love the 70% is how you look, 20 is how you sound, and 10 is what you say, right?
I think you're giving too much credit to what you say.
Maybe now.
Yeah.
But it goes back to empathy and what's the right way to phrase this? Maybe a holistic understanding of your civic duty. When Chris was talking about Pennsylvania, those are things I didn't really know about the culture of people there. And in something like Fantasy Elect, or in any other fantasy sport for that matter, you're not always betting on your team to win. You're betting on the outcome. And in order to do that, you have to understand your competitors and their strategy and their scope and their goals. And having this gamification behind it is a nice, inspiring way to do that. Like, if there was a great bet I could take on the outcomes of John and Oz in Pennsylvania. Is it John Letterman? Is that his name?
John Fetterman.
Better. Thank you. I get him confused with somebody else. I would be inspired to talk to people I know in Pennsylvania about those types of attitudes. I never would have done that otherwise. I would have looked at the polls and projected from there. But I really love the idea of all models being wrong, but some being useful. I'm going to use that a lot.
And it was a philosophy. It might have been David Hume that said it. I forget.
Gotcha.
Are you still getting the lag, by the way? Are you still getting the lag, by the way?
This is what
I am getting a little bit of echo.
Are you?
I think it's from Justin's mic.
Oh. Boy, everything's
so
my
if you're I noticed when you were muted that it stopped.
Yeah. That's why I was muting and I was wondering. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
What I love about where we are now, we're talking about teams and everything, and now DeSantis. We have to talk about DeSantis now says he's asking for $1 million for Florida State to sue college football because the College Football Playoff Committee. Have you guys seen this?
No.
DeSantis is asking for $1 million so that Florida State can sue the College Football Committee over its decision to exclude the team from the playoff. I just want to know. It seems to me that may not be the best use of $1 million, but potentially it's a good use. Maybe that'll earn him some points. What are your thoughts?
Let me put on how, if I was the press person or if I was the campaign staff, how I would spin that. Sure, it's $1 million, but it's only X% of the state budget, and the revenue that Florida State, that FSU would bring to the state, if it's in a national championship, would be 100 times that. So this is really a money-making opportunity for the state, because with that money, we can hire we can hire more police, we can pay teachers more, we can make up this bullshit. But that's where I would start. But it's stupid. Having said that, I think it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But you can you can rationale that there is an economic benefit to doing it.
Is this still his ongoing battle with things that don't fucking matter? His battle with Disney, his battle with all of these things. Is this just his ongoing? It's the same thing about debating Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom isn't the presumptive nominee of the other party. Now, if it would be a real coup if DeSantis had finagled a debate with Biden, but it seems like he's constantly playing minor league ball, and when he tries to play big league ball, he's like an also ran, not especially for somebody who before the primaries really started was presumptive to actually be the one who could unthrone or unseat Trump. But everything he does now seems, I'm surprised I am even saying this, but like almost more petty and beneath what he's trying to do than even Trump and his pettiness. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it's small.
It keeps adding to the narrative of like this. He's not serious.
Yeah, it's small ball, and I think that his campaign has suffered from that. I mean, people like presidents to do big things. As absurd as it was, Trump coming down the escalator and making these absolutely grand pronouncements, that was a big thing. Obama, pretty much speechifying with giant soaring rhetoric was a big thing. Attacking a couple shitty Disney movies is not a big thing. And it's petty grievance. And people go, not presidential.
Yeah. Listen, if I was running DeSantis's campaign, I would say, shut the hell up about college football. And let's have you go make a speech in Jerusalem. That sounds presidential. That is like, give a foreign policy speech in Jerusalem where there's an active conflict, where there's things going on. Same thing, like play big. To your point, play big league. Don't play the small stuff, for me, it's almost like I don't even take the guy seriously. Him and his high heels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. You want to jump in there?
There's a lot of fluff. A lot of flack gets thrown out. DeSantis reminds me of a talented salesperson who thinks they're a talented marketer. Like he's going out saying, these are all of our problems. I've got the solution. Pay me. And you're fixed, right? That's a sales tactic. Here's everything wrong with your life. Here's why I'm going to fix it. That's sales. Marketing is, here's what I do. You're either in or you're not. You know, it's very different. And there's a sincere lack of any marketing coming from either side of the spectrums that are way too far. Like, it's their Doug Song, who founded Duo Security, said, innovation is cheap, invention is expensive, right? And the line of thinking there is ideas. Everyone has ideas. Everyone. The homeless guy outside arguing with a stop sign has ideas. Having the ability to strategize and plan and execute, design, develop, and publish, and then look back and reflect and start it all over again for the propagation of all society, totally different, right? That's and we're not seeing that enough. And there's another issue where you also have this younger culture that want bite-sized morsels. They want it in 5 minutes. They want to know immediately. Tell me the truth right now. They don't want to critically think about it. And that's kind of tough. Now, a game like Fantasy Elect, that incentivizes me to learn about it, right? So like this is something that I think will help. There's also an acceptance of bullying for smarts. You know, if Biden gets up there and tells you his plan for the next 4 years, this is where we are, this is where we were, this is where we're going. That's smart. It's laid out. It involves critical thinking. When the other guy just says that guy's a moron, it hits a lot of dopamine, and a lot of underachievers are going to feel really like they achieved something because they also feel that way. But it's not progressive. And I don't mean that in a political sense. I mean it in a cultural sense. So I really think that there needs to be an understanding and a fearlessness when engaging with bullies and skeptics. Because when I go into a plan with anybody about a marketing strategy for my startup or production of a show, there's steps. It's thought out. It's double checked. It's cross-referenced. I look at previous endeavors and what kind of failures there were and what kind of successes. And anybody, a lot of people would call me a nerd or a dork. Or, you know, if I know the average number of punches that a fighter is going to throw in a fight, I'm suddenly a dork to the other fight fans. Like, why are you paying attention to that data? Well, because I want to know I want to predict who's going to win this fight or this game. And I want to be rewarded for that. And I find numbers to be intellectually stimulating. Right?
And you can laugh all the way to the bank when you win the pot.
Exactly. Even if I bet against a fighter I love. Right? And that's okay. It's an awareness that's lacking. So I would really like to see some of these people who are using sales models learn a little bit more about marketing. Because
I think that's a good point. I know we're bumping up against the hour, so I think to that point, I'm going to ask you guys both a series of questions over under 50-50. What's the answer that you're going to give? and I'll rapid fire them to both of you, and we'll see where you end up. All right. 50-50 over under. What's the likelihood that Mayor Adams is indicted in the next week?
Over 50. Over 50.
Over 50. Nice. Coming out strong, Chris. Aaron?
I'm going to vote present on this one. I don't have enough information.
All right. Okay. We'll let you on that one, I guess. The
I
next
would
one,
pick that one for my fantasy.
I'm going to start with you on the next one then. Over under in the next week, all the presidents, or at least actually one of the presidents of the Ivy League universities resigns. Over under 50-50. Aaron.
In the next
week.
Under. I don't think anybody's going to resign.
Under.
I froze and I didn't even hear your answer, and I'm sure it was amazing. What was your answer, Aaron?
we both said under.
Under 50. Not one of them will resign, or resign, quote unquote, be fired, resign.
Yeah, they're making too much money. No, they're making too much money. When you are that little. You are that little making that kind of bang, and you're making that kind of bang. You have to drag me out on my fingernail. Drag me out on my fingernail.
Well, I didn't say that they wouldn't get a golden parachute. I just think that their fundraising is really starting to plummet, and I think that could be okay, under 50. Both of you got it. 50-50 over under. In the next week, we find out that the real Putin is actually dead, and it's been a body double for a while.
Under.
No.
Under 50. Okay, both of you under 50 on that one. All right. Tying in with that very morbid post, over under 50-50, we find out that guy Yu in the Arlington house explosion is actually still alive, and this whole thing is some sort of weird conspiracy. By the way, I'm going to give you a little hint. There is on Twitter, apparently he was commenting in YouTube videos on his feed after it happened, saying he was still alive. So anyway, 50-50 over under. We find out that he's still alive. Over. Yeah. Aaron?
I'll go under on this one.
Okay, you're going to go under. You don't want to play with the conspiracy theory. Got it. The last one I have, over under 50-50. The Republican donor subpoena hearing in the Senate is more explosive than the Hunter Biden subpoena hearing in the House. 50-50. Which ones has a higher chance of being explosive for politics?
Under on the donor. Under on the donor.
So you think donors, the Supreme Court donor hearing will be less explosive than the Hunter Biden for the political, for politics?
Yeah, I think way under. I think way under.
Oh wow, way under.
I'm
I
inclined
thought for
to
sure
agree
Harlan
with
Crow
that,
would be
especially
a big news
on
story.
I think it will be unfortunately under.
Okay. Can I just add, by the way,
coverage will just be the result.
Maybe. Can I also just add, I feel like Harlan Crow was the name of a character on like Justified or something, by the way. I feel like I've heard that name before, and not in political circles. All right. Anyway, I would say,
I have.
Yeah. You have one.
Over for you.
Yes, I love it. Great.
Over under 10 presidential election cycles. We elect an AI president.
Oh shit. Chris, did you and I have a conversation about this?
That's 40 years, right?
I feel like I had a conversation with someone recently that would AI be a better president? I'm going to answer that the same way that conversation went, which was, has anybody seen the movie Eagle Eye with Shia LaBeouf?
We were talking about
the
it.
entire
up.
So it was you and I, right? Yeah. So the entire premise of this movie is that AI is basically in control of our national security apparatus, and the president violates the Constitution or international war stuff, and the AI sets out to remove the entire government apparatus through assassination. because they can no longer be trusted to follow the laws. I think that's it, really. I do think that within 10 election cycles, there will be an AI component to the presidency. So I think we will still elect an individual, but I think there will be built in potentially, I think there's a slightly over 50-50, a possibility that there will be an AI component to the governance of the government. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
It does.
I'm going to talk about AI really quickly. So there's been a number of bills and legislation proposed about getting rid of AI in political ads and political stuff, which is, and I've read a couple of them, and they are so fucking stupid because they don't really define what AI is. I mean, basically, my phone is AI. And the photography, the camera on this phone is fucking AI. And so you could literally say, something you would shoot on your phone would be illegal because it's AI. Any kind of high-end, digital camera for production has AI in it. And again, it's dilettantes, not knowing what they're doing. Dilettantes kind of every other business, when government makes decisions, they bring in experts that, if I'm going to do a manufacturing thing, I'll bring somebody who's a manufacturing expert. In politics, they bring up some jerk off college professor who's never done a campaign in his life. By the way, if you like that movie, I would highly recommend an old one which is fabulous. It's called Colossus: The Forbin Project. And it is the same premise that a scientist creates a supercomputer that is going to end the threat of nuclear war with the Russians, and unshockingly, it goes south. But I want to think Harlan Ellison wrote the book. But Colossus: The Forbin Project, it's fabulous. But it's old school and.
That's on my watch list now. I feel like also I have to go back and look at the movie recommendation from last week as well, because that's also. I need to watch.
I forget. What did I give you?
Chris,
what did I give you?
I have to go back and look at my notes, but man, it was I don't remember. Chris, do you have an over/under before we go on our way out?
Sure. Over/under. Before the Iowa Ron DeSantis dropped out.
Wow.
His
I think
pride
it's under.
Complicates this.
I think it's under. I think that is potentially his best state, and then he's out. I think he's out. After New Hampshire.
Okay.
Yep. I'm in alignment there, but there's a little part of me that recognizes how Trumpy Ron DeSantis is and his refusal to accept defeats. He might stick around, but I have a feeling he'll drop and blame everyone, or there will be a scandal that he will blame. They're investigating him for tax fraud, and he'll blame that. He'll look for a scapegoat. It will never be him dropping out because it's the right decision to make for him. It will be because he's forced out. I don't think he has a flexibility in that narcissism.
Guys, it's in the can. We finished with some technical difficulties. I think I'm realizing now that it might be me. So it's not you, it's me. And it was a lot of fun, guys. It was a pleasure, and we'll see how many of our 50-50s end up being true. Putin, I'll be looking for that. Outcome. All right, guys.
I was gonna. Yeah. We could do one more.
While you're thinking of it, by the way, Aaron, what's really fucked up. Chris, do you realize that we may have cursed several people into death last week? Sandra Day O'Connor, Kissinger, holy shit. And then now today, Norman Lear. And Norman Lear was over your 100 threshold, by the way. He was 101. So if you were playing your game, would you actually lose a point because he outlived your 100?
Yeah. Do you know this game? Do you know this game? Aaron, I've got a game, and I've played with my friend for 30 years. I've played with my friend for 30 years. You do celebrity. You at the beginning of the year, you pick 5 people that you think are going to die. Their age minus 100, and it's a score. And it's usually everybody throws like $10 in a pot. And so the money's, but it's like you get really competitive about people dying. Anyway, the person who's going to win my pool this year had the singer for the Pogues who died. Geez. And he was 46, and it was 54 big points. And you're not getting, that's a tough number to beat. So especially this close to the end.
Yeah, very much so.
But
very much so.
But we always play the death pool, and so I always have a root for dying.
I gotta start that with my other show. We would have some fun with that.
I'll play my funny story. It's I guess it's 3-4 years ago. I guess it's stepping out of the supermarket, and they've got that little TV monitor where it says CNN and stuff. And I'm close to winning. It's a really competitive thing. But one of the guys I had was Suge Knight, and I'm in line, and it has coming up next, and I'm in line with groceries and these nice old ladies, next to me, and it has Suge Knight rush to the hospital. I'm like, fuck yeah, and it's like because, and they're looking at me like, and I'm like, sorry, But it was like it becomes a little sadistic, I think, but probably not healthy emotionally. Yeah. But anyway, all right, guys, it's been fun.
Yeah. I got my over under for you. Super quick, super easy, great wrap up. Over under 1 conviction, and Trump leaves the country.
No fucking way. No,
he'll get no jail time. He'll leave.
I think he's going to get elected with multiple convictions, or he's going to be the nominee with multiple convictions potentially.
There you go.
I agree.
No, I think cool. That guy's in it to win it. I don't think he's going to have to be dead and buried, and even then, he might still be running.
I like it.
Aaron, do you want to do us the honor of signing us off?
Sure. We'll sign off with a quote from George Carlin today. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups.
Brilliant. All right, guys. Have a great day. See you next time.
Thanks Justin. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.